Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. And welcome to another episode of My Collecting Life, the weekly series where I get to chat with you, members of the toy collecting community, about your own personal collections, finding out what got you into collecting in the first place and what gives you that toy collecting buzz. All right, you lot. So, who is the guest on this week's episode then? Well, why don't we find out? Plonk yourselves down, make yourselves comfortable, and feast your mince pies on the Gogglebox as we take a butcher's at a photographic compilation of his collection, beautifully entwined with a musical melody. Okie dokie then. So yet again, we are treated to another fantastic collection and it is beautifully displayed. And for all you Star Wars fans, what a lovely treat that was. Anyhow, it is a pleasure to welcome to the channel for the first time, Mr. Daniel Chart. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey. Hello, Stuart. How you doing,
you
mate?
Good? Yeah, I'm fine, mate. I'm really excited about chatting to you because I think this is the first time we're going to get to properly chat. I know we've met face to face at Star Wars Celebration earlier in the year, but yeah, it means a lot you being on the channel and being part of the series. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, mate. It's an
absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Right, so I've got 10 questions for you, all about you and your collection. I've got a few photographs I'm going to chuck up on the screen in one of the questions a bit later, so I'm looking forward to those. One time, roughly about an hour. If we go over, yeah, it's all good, not too bad. So if you're ready, sir, we're cracking with the first question.
Ready when you are.
All good, cool. Right, what toy lines were you into as a kid? And what memories do you have of those toy lines?
Ooh. So I was heavily into Star Wars figures when I was a kid, obviously.
Yep.
Action Man.
Okay.
I had quite a few, the 12-inch Action Man.
Yeah.
I was heavily into He-Man after the Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it, really, for figures and toys. I spent most of my childhood outside kicking footballs around and getting involved in lots of sporting things. You wouldn't believe it to look at me now, but I was quite sporty when I was young. I was always climbing trees and all sorts of things. So
yeah, that good old sport of climbing trees. Yeah.
But toy lines, Action Man, Star Wars figures, and a little bit later the He-Man figures. I was never into Transformers or Turtles or any of that, Ghostbusters, any of that kind of stuff. Because, like I said, I spent most of my time outside.
So with the Action Force, then I'm guessing that came before the Star Wars, then.
The Action Man did, yes. My brother's a little bit older than me. He's 8 years older than me. So he had some Action Man toys when he was a kid. And then when I came along, obviously a couple of his figures were handed to me when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, whatever it was. So I was born in 74. So just coming up to the 80s, I was playing with the Action Man most of the time. Scalextrics as well. I had a racing track. Wow. And also something I know you was mentioned in one of your previous collecting lives a few weeks back, Subbuteo.
Oh yeah.
So I was
how good was that?
Massively into football and all that. So Subbuteo, I spent hours with my brother playing Subbuteo.
The thing is with Subbuteo, it's one of those toy lines, isn't it, where it never sort of you never feel like you're too old to play it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I've still got
play it from a kid all the way up through to adulthood.
I've still got it now. I've still got some.
Have you really?
I've still got some. I wish I'd got some out now and been able to show you. I've still got some teams. I've still got an Astro pitch. I know you mentioned that in your previous collecting lives. I haven't played with it for a long time, I must admit, because my children are not. My son's not really into football, and my daughter not sporty at all. So it's a shame, but I've still got it. I know exactly where it is. I could get it out and look at it.
You see, I'm so tempted, Daniel. I'm so tempted. Every time I go to a toy fair, I see like a Subbuteo lot, and I'm like, oh god. And you've got all the teams because you had the old cardboard boxes, didn't you, to start with the cardboard lids? You take them off, and they're quite chunky, like little figures. And then it went to the like the plastic and the what do you call it? That styrofoam type of
polystyrene. Yeah, the ones I've got, they're in the green rectangle box, but with the polystyrene tray. That's you slide out and all the players are in there. The goalkeepers up the side.
Because you used to get the old number transfers, didn't you? Put them on the back.
Yeah, the numbers, little sticker. I had the fence around the pitch. I had a couple of the stadiums, but I never bothered getting the whole thing. I mean, that was too much room. And I was fortunate enough when I was a kid to have I had a 6-foot snooker table as well in my bedroom. And I used to roll the pitch out on the snooker table so we could stand up and play it. Because the amount of times we played on the floor and trod on the players and broke them.
Get broken, It
was so much better to have it up.
I was saying a few weeks back, the funny thing with that is that there's such small little players, but you wouldn't believe how much space it actually takes up because, I mean, like I say, I've been tempted to get a pitch and stuff like that, but then I'd have to get a board to put it on. And we've literally got no room here. So, and I know Georgie, bless her, she would do a nut, but it's amazing how much space that game took up. You know, did you have the scoreboard as well?
I did have the little black scoreboard with the paper team name slid in. Oh, I have memories, brilliant memories. I mean, I was fortunate. I had a lovely, wonderful childhood. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't spoiled. We wasn't rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I didn't want for anything. Yeah. I was quite lucky in that respect. So I spent many, many, many brilliant hours playing all kinds of. We used to do leagues and tournaments with it. Yeah. And then obviously the Action Man. I had the big orange training tower with a zip line and all sorts of stuff. So I had some wonderful times when I was a kid. But I think the Star Wars figures trumped everything. When they came.
So I guess you saw the film before you saw the toys, or it would have done because
the
toys went out.
I honestly don't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure I never went to the cinema to see Star Wars because that came out in '77. I was only 3.
You'd have been about 3 then, wouldn't you? So
3. I know I went to the cinema to watch Empire. I remember that, and I definitely went to the cinema to watch Jedi. Yeah, but I don't recall going to the cinema to watch Star Wars. I probably saw that at home when it was on the television before I went to see Empire. So I'm not sure exactly when it was shown on television in the United Kingdom, but I presume it would have been 79, 80 maybe when it was on telly. So I definitely saw it, not in a cinema.
So what was it about Star Wars then that sort of like set it apart from any other toy line for you as a kid back then?
It was all about the size of the figures, wasn't it? The scale, the world building. I mean, you could use Tupperware tubs and washing up liquid bottles and all kinds of things to create the buildings and the arenas and everywhere to play. I mean, Action Man was brilliant, but it was all a bit too big, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You need too much room. So yeah, that for me, and obviously the films were like mind-boggling when we saw them as children.
Absolutely.
But and obviously my friends, neighbours, they had Star Wars bits and bobs as well, so we all used to play together. I used to really enjoy playing out in the garden, in the front garden with my neighbours, particularly when Jedi came out with Endor and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We loved all that. It was brilliant.
And I mean, and back then as well, I mean, I know some people say they kind of like, they wanted their figures film accurate, and some of them have even said, even as a kid, they moaned that it didn't look exactly like the figure in the cartoon or in the film and stuff like that. But to me, that didn't really sort of matter. I knew Han Solo was Han Solo. I knew the Death Squad commander or the Star Destroyer commander, whatever you want to call him at the time. I knew who he was. I mean, was it the same for you? Were you that worried about the figures being screen accurate, or are you quite happy knowing who they were and just getting on and playing?
I wouldn't say it bothered me. I remember wanting them to look better than they actually did. The thing for me with them, the thing that annoyed me the most about them was the fact you couldn't bend their knees and you couldn't bend their elbows and sit them down properly and things. Because I'm quite creative, as you know. I used to make little chairs for them to sit in and try and create the environments like in the Star Wars universe. And it used to frustrate me that you couldn't sit them down properly on chairs and things like that and hold their weapons in a proper pose, you know?
Yeah.
So when the modern figures came along, or when I actually saw the modern figures, which we'll get onto later, I was mind blown by the articulation. I was, you know, I straight away thought, wow, I wish we had these when we were kids.
So interesting you're saying about like Star Wars, it was the 3 3/4 inch and it was all about the figures and the world building. You were into Action Force. Did you not want to get into Action Force then when it transcended into the 3 3/4 inch, like the SAS Force, Z Force, and then later when it became G.I. Joe?
I think by that time I was so into the Star Wars, because if I remember correctly, we didn't get the 3 3/4 inch Action Force figures until much later than the States or anywhere like that. I remember seeing them. I remember the little red Action Force cards with the bubble. But by that time, I'd sort of got away from Action Man and was well into Star Wars. And then, of course, He-Man came along. So I got into that as well. But, yeah, it was... I suppose I could have got into the 3 3/4 inch Action
because
Force.
I mean, those O-ring figures, they did have better articulation, didn't they? They did have the movable elbows and the knees.
They had bendable elbows and knees, some of them. So
someone made an interesting point. Sorry, someone made an interesting point quite a while back, and I was watching a video, and they were saying when the last 17 of the Star Wars figures came out, why couldn't they have gone down the line of putting the articulation in like they did with the O-ring G.I. Joes? Now, to me, that wouldn't have worked simply because that kind of articulation wouldn't have fitted in within that toy line for that time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I just thought, well, yeah, I can see his point, but you couldn't have like the last 17 figures with all this super articulation and the rest of the figures all 5 POA.
Exactly. When I have some of them, you've got to have them all.
Sorry, what was that?
I said, if the point you made, if you're going to have some of them like that, they've all got to be like that.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And Master of the Universe, what got you into that? Was that through the cartoons, watching that, or
the cartoons? When that came out, the cartoons, obviously, friends at school, and seeing them in the toy shops hanging up on the pegs. That for me, the greatest image of my childhood is walking into the toy shops and seeing all those Star Wars figures hanging up on those pegs, on those black cards. I could stand there for hours just staring at them, picking them up, you know. And then, of course, the Masters of the Universe were on the cards as well. And I mean, not as iconic as the Star Wars card, but still good to look at. And I mean, the cartoon was probably what did it for me.
Yeah. And what about Saturday morning TV and after school TV? Did you sort of like get involved in any of that?
Yeah,
Did
I
you watch
used
the
to run home.
cartoons and
I
stuff?
used to run home from school every day to watch some of the programs. Grange Hill, things like that. I used to love
Grange
that.
Hill, yeah.
Cartoons. I mean, I remember a cartoon I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday morning. I think it was called Battle of the Planets.
Yeah.
It was that, iconic, like intro with the like the Phoenix and the fire and the space. I used to love that show. Obviously Top Cat, all those kind of things. Captain Caveman. Never got into Thundercats, I must admit. I watched it a little bit, but wasn't really my cup of tea. He-Man was. What else? What else did I used to like watching? Well, you sort of got me there. Most of the usual stuff, but standout. He-Man was a standout, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So why wasn't Transformers your thing then? Because I mean, that was a big hit in the 80s. Like anything like Transformers Mask, you weren't interested in that at all?
No, for some reason it sort of passed me by. I saw them in the shops.
Yeah,
I mean, you had the cartoon, you had the programs. I remember some of my friends had some, used to bring them to school and things. But it just, like I said, most of my childhood I spent out kicking balls around, hitting golf balls, playing tennis, all that kind of stuff, sporty stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, just when I was indoors, I was fixated on Star Wars because I mean, we all know that it's the greatest fictional story ever told, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, my next question I think is I think everybody's going to know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. What was your favorite toy line and why? Or did it sort of change as you sort of like grew older, sort of thing?
Obviously, Star Wars was the favorite, but it did change. Action Man was my first big love.
Yeah.
Then the Star Wars, then He-Man. I did get heavily into He-Man, like I said, and put Star Wars away for a little while. But I always went back to it because, like I said, the world building and the scale and that was the toy line that I had most of. I mean, I was quite fortunate, like I said before, at Christmas times, I got the AT-AT, I got the Millennium Falcon and all the mini rigs and lots of figures, and that was the top toy line for me.
How cool was that though, birthdays and Christmas, when you knew you were going to get something Star Wars, but you didn't quite know what, and then you got downstairs and you'd unwrapping his presents and you got this, that, and the other, and it's just, I remember personally as a kid, I just loved that. I just get the AT-AT or the Falcon or whatever for Christmas or birthdays and stuff like that. It was, I don't know, it just seemed simpler times back then, didn't it? And it's just like, and that's when kids actually played with toys, wasn't it? You could actually go and sit and play in your room for God knows how long, for hours on end, and just.
We used to set them up, didn't we? Set them up into scenes and call me mum and me dad, come and look at this setup that I've done. It probably bored them to tears, but you know what? You'd spend hours setting them up. Like I said, I had props in and washing up bottles and God knows what, and come and have a look at this. I've set up the base, and it's wonderful times, weren't they? They were great.
It was absolutely fantastic. So when did you stop playing with your toys then, and when did you become a collector?
Good question. I probably stopped playing with action figures and things like that not long after my 14th, maybe 15th birthday. Now that may seem quite early, but I had a few events happened in my life around that time that made me lose focus on toys and things like that. So I never really, like I said, I spent a lot of time playing out, sport, football, things like that. I won't keep saying that that's. And then you get into girls and things when you get to a certain age. So most of my toys and figures, I probably stopped playing with them 14, 15.
Okay.
And like an idiot, all of my Star Wars stuff I gave away. I just bought it was all boxed up, and I'm quite a stickler for detail, and I'm quite organized in everything I've got. So I had all the weapons in boxes. I didn't lose anything. I kept everything. I had all the figures boxed up, bagged up, boxed. I was terrible for it, to be honest. A little bit OCD, if you want.
Nothing wrong with that.
I just gave them all away to a neighbour who lived across from us. She had a young son, and I just gave them all to her. Everything, all the ship, the AT-AT, the Millennium Falcon, the X-wing, all the mini rigs, all the figures. I didn't have every single figure, I must admit. I probably had 90 of the 96, shall we say?
Wow.
Just give them all away, and didn't regret it at the time, but I regret it now.
Yeah, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is a wonderful thing. And I've done the same with all of my toys, Action Man, Hinger, everything. I gave pretty much everything away over a sort of 5-year period. So I don't actually have any toys that I had as a kid whatsoever. Nothing.
Wow.
Only Subbuteo, but that I never really hit. That wasn't the Subbuteo that I have now. I didn't get that when I was a kid. I got that when I was a young adult. So
yeah. So what was it then that got you back into collecting them?
It was 2010. So I would say from what year would it have been now? Left school in 90. So let's say from 92 to 2010, I never took any notice whatsoever of toys, apart from toys that I bought for my kids for their birthdays and things like that. I don't even recall seeing anything Star Wars in shops. But, you know, just oblivious to it, just living your life, doing other things. And it was coming up to my son's birthday, 2010. He's born on May the 4th, would you believe?
Oh,
and
awesome.
He's George. Brilliant. I mean, I didn't call him George because of George Lucas, but born on the 4th of May. It couldn't have been any better than that. And I'm walking through Smith's Toys, local to where I live, looking for something to get him. He loved these Toy Story things and all this stuff, you know, the Buzz Lightyear and all that. And at the corner of my eye, hanging up on the pegs, I saw, I'm going to show you.
Yep. Let's get your big screen.
I saw this.
Okay. Yep.
And I saw this.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. Now, this is the first 2 figures from the first wave of the vintage collection.
Yeah.
And the Luke Skywalker Bespin was my favorite figure from the original Kenner line.
Yeah.
I love that figure. And I saw them hanging up on the pegs, and straight away the card, it just drew me to it.
Yeah.
And I took it off. I looked at it. I couldn't believe the likeness, the articulation. I studied it. And like I said to you earlier, I was thinking, wow, I wish we'd had something like this when we were kids. And I thought, I'm going to buy these, see if George likes them. And I hadn't even thought about Star Wars, like I said, at all. Not even I watched the prequel trilogy when it came out in the cinema and all that kind of stuff, but never looked at the original trilogy or anything. Never bothered with it. But these card backs, just a light bulb just went bing in my head.
Yeah.
Brought them home, showed them to George like on his birthday. He loved them. He was like, he opened them up. Not these two, obviously, but 2 others I've got. Opened them up. And I said to my wife, I said to my missus, I remember these when I was a kid. I want to get some more of these. She was like, what are you talking about? What do you want more of them for? Like, what's wrong with you? I don't know. It's just something's gone off inside me. It just reminded me of a wonderful childhood. And then I started looking up on the internet about the vintage collection, and I went on looking for websites that told us, information about Star Wars figures, and it just started off just a chain of events that's led me to where I am now. It's crazy.
That is awesome. So to you then, how important do you think? Because I know a lot of people they're just interested in the figure, but how important is it to you, the whole package, like the card back, the bubble, the back of the card? Because obviously that's what drew you to that figure, wasn't it? The card back. So how important is that to you as a collector or someone that can remember back to the Star Wars days of the old?
As a kid, the packaging was irrelevant. All we were interested in is what was in it. So I remember ripping them to shreds, getting them out, playing with the figure. But as an adult, and knowing the value of the original ones that are still on the card and the nostalgia that you get from it. To me, I can see both. I can see how important the figures are and how important to us older collectors who were around when the first lot come out, the significance of the card back and the actual look of that figure on the card. All the other packaging lines, there's been so many through the years. Nothing grabs our generation's attention like
no. They're absolutely spot on. And when you look back at those with the figures now and the card back, do you kind of wish like that you would have sort of like looked after some of the card backs a little bit better? Or
absolutely. Yeah. But alas, we didn't know it was rip them open and get the figures out.
Well, no, that's it. I mean, so I mean, with collecting, are you an inbox collector, loose collector?
I'm actually both. Originally, I was just a loose collector. Well, actually,
Yeah.
I was opening them up for my son to play with. I wasn't really intending to collect lots and lots of them, but then it's just those, you know, it's our childhood. It's the big thing, isn't it? The card backs, the figures, the articulation. So yeah, originally I was just collecting them loose. So every now and again, if I was buying some for George, I'd buy two of a couple of figures just so I could keep one. And as you know, I'm heavily into dioramas and props and building things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's one of the later questions. We might get to that later, but
it certainly is, sir.
So there was a reason I wanted to keep some loose ones for myself. But it was only after I'd pretty much got all of the loose figures that I wanted that I then obviously I met Only One Kenobi, Nick, and Tim Boss Bounty, and I saw their carded collections, and I sort of thought, yeah, I'll have a carded collection as well as a loose collection, you know, why not?
They got lots of for those, don't they?
They are, the pair of them, yeah, they've cost me a lot of money through the years, them two. Among others, there are others before them as well. Yeah. I've been around a little while. But yeah, I'm carded and loose, but I don't collect everything. I own carded wise, I only collect the cards from the original trilogy.
Yeah.
In the vintage collection. And I'm actually collecting the cards from The Mandalorian.
Okay.
I was gonna collect the Rogue One cards as well, because I really enjoyed Rogue One. It linked in so well with the original trilogy. Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, it is the best Disney film by a long way. But I've not gonna bother with Rogue One because of obviously the cost and storing it, displaying it.
Yeah.
Just don't have the room.
That's the problem.
So I'm going to stick with the OT and the Mando for now.
No, fair play, fair play. I've pretty much done the same thing. Well, basically, I'm just concentrating on the original trilogy figures. But then again, also, I wouldn't mind going back and getting some of the TVC 1.0 figures because I missed out on them. You know, I think Darth Maul was the only one I got at that time. And for me at that time, it was like, well, these aren't original trilogy figures. This isn't a vintage collection. This is a modern day film with a modern, with a, you know, an original style card back from back in the 70s. I was hoping it would be like more Empire, Star Wars, and Jedi. Those kind of figures that we had the original 96 on the new card backs. When they started doing sequel movies, not sequel, prequel stuff, I was like, yeah. So more for me, but there you are. What can you do?
Well, not really. I felt exactly the same, to be honest.
Yeah.
And when each wave came out of the 1.0 VC, I never took no notice of the Mace Windu's and the clones and the you know, the Darth Mauls and I was only interested in the original trilogy figures because you know those card backs are original trilogy. Because when they first came out, that's all we had. We didn't have anything else.
No, that's it.
You know, it should be kept to original trilogy, really, that card. But that's another argument.
Well, the thing is, as well, I'm like you. I started watching Only One and Tim from Bosk's Bounty, and their influence is horrendous because, like you, I saw their collection and thought that does look pretty cool, doesn't it? And I was like, okay. So then I started jumping on the bandwagon, and but then what can you do? What got you into doing your own customs, and did you have any influences? Now, you said that you've always been quite artistic when it comes to doing scenes and scenery and stuff like that. What was it that made you do that in the first place?
I as a child, obviously I wanted buildings, dioramas, like I said before, usual kinds of things, but I wanted it to look realistic. And my dad, bless him, was hard at work, didn't have a great deal of time for doing stuff like that. So my son, when he started collecting Star Wars, when I started collecting them for him and he got into them, I thought to myself, I'm going to try and build him some buildings, some dioramas, some scenery that look realistic. And it's all trial and error. I mean, when I first started, some of the things that I've knocked up were abominations, to be honest with you, but I'd like to think that as I've done it more and more and got a little bit more proficient at it, they look a little bit better.
Well, they do, and I've got some here just to show you guys. So
I've got a couple of little dioramas scattered around me.
This is absolutely stunning.
Well, that one is actually, as you can see, is the stairs and the circle from the Hasbro playset. Yeah. I just added. I made the legs out of some wooden dowel with some foam wrapped around it and painted them. There's polystyrene base, and then the top is all made from foam board and bits of wire. And you can see there's a jack plug there from some headphones. There's a couple of bottle tops and all just bits of junk basically that look like something Star Warsy. And then I just bunged it all together and put some lights in it, and there you go. I mean, I would love to add more to that. I'd like to make that a lot bigger and a lot realistic.
And here's another one there, but that is just absolutely phenomenal. And I love the way that you've actually incorporated that abomination that Hasbro did and made it your own thing. I mean, why can't Hasbro do something like that? I mean, if you can do something like that, why can't Hasbro?
Exactly. I mean, to be honest, all of the playsets that they've released, they're okay. The Tantive Corridor, but there's not enough to them. The Tantive Corridor should have had a ceiling on it. It should have had a wider floor because it's not wide enough. It should have had you should have been able to make it like a tunnel. Yeah, proper. So, and the same with the carbon freezing chamber. The fact you only got half of the circle was ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? I mean, I think that's possibly one of the worst play sets I think Hasbro have done. I mean, I just think it was absolutely horrendous for the price it was at the time. Yeah.
I think the Navarro Cantina is atrocious as well, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
cardboard with a door painted on it.
Yeah.
It's not great, to be honest. It really isn't.
But I don't understand. So, I mean, with the Tantive 4, you thought, okay, that's pretty decent. I mean, I don't mind it as a display piece, and it does look quite good. Yes, it is a little bit narrow, but they've got the sliding doors. Why couldn't they have done that on the Navarro playset? Why did they go for the cheap option and do the cardboard door?
Because we swallow it. That's why. Because we buy it. Yeah. They shouldn't. Yeah. You're right. They shouldn't get away.
Well, I know. Yeah.
They had a plastic sliding door, like you said, on the Tantive. Why couldn't you have a plastic sliding door on the Navarro?
And then you've got this one here as well, which I think is tremendous. So you made everything there, did you? I guess.
Well, the chairs I made, they're made from cardboard, thick poster board, some foamy, and actually one of my wife's old leather handbags for the cushion. I cut it to pieces and used it. They actually swivel as well, those chairs. There's a pin that runs down. The stand that the chair is on with the feet is a hollow straw with a metal. There's a nail that goes through the seat down into the straw all the way to the bottom, which actually enables you to spin the chair around. Those two chairs I actually gave to Nick. In one of the packages I sent him. And the red consoles are made from foam core, and they're covered with decals from a website called dioramaworkshop.com.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a fellow in America, his name's Frank Diorio. He's a good friend of mine. And he's got his own website, and he's been producing decals for dioramas for years. And he enables everybody to download them and use them for themselves. So that's great. And then the walls in the background, I did try to make some walls myself, but cutting out the light panel was quite tricky because I do everything by hand. I don't have a 3D printer. I just use hand tools and all this kind of stuff. I'm very old school Blue Peter. So they're actually where did I get them from?
Are they from Space Walls?
So I think they are. I'll tell you what they are. Are they Space Walls or are they the other ones? Because they are Space Walls. They are Space Walls. Yeah. You can get them in 6-inch, and you used to be able to get them in 3.75, but they stopped doing them now.
Yeah,
they are Space Walls. I did order some from America a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I've got myself some of those Space Walls, and I've just done the little bits around the side for the
they come with a little. They come with a little
anything like that.
They come with a little orange clip.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Again, Daniel, that is absolutely fantastic, and I've got to say, I'm so impressed that you actually you do these by hand and you don't have a 3D printer or anything like that.
Well, I've got one here that I haven't. I've just got one here that I haven't actually videoed yet. I haven't put on my channel because I've been.
Go on in. Let's chuck you up.
This is one I made. I think I've shown it before, but it is the entrance to Docking Bay 94.
Look at that
one there. So everything in there is made by hand. That drum was just a piece of plumbing pipe, and I put a top. There's a straw there with some bits on. The 94 is cut out of a foam sheet. Let me try and get the camera to go the way I want it to. Those boxes there are just a wooden cube that I dremeled and then just stuck loads of bits and bobs on. It's just a bits of crap, and the door is actually, I'll show you the back, is actually just a piece of foam.
Yeah.
That I put some detail on and painted, and the trim around the door is again foam that I just cut with a Stanley knife and stuck it around.
Absolutely, it looks absolutely stunning. That, I mean, the attention to detail is just absolutely incredible, and it looks realistic. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't look.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's the point. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So when I made that one years ago, actually, I made that. George used to love playing with that one because it looks just like the film. And then the buildings, I made lots and lots of buildings. You know, just they're all made from foam ball covered in plaster bandages.
Yeah.
Polystyrene ball that cut in half, stick it on the top, and then
just. But how realistic do they look?
Well, they look. I'd like to think they look realistic.
Absolutely, yeah. 100%. It's just incredible, and it makes you wonder, why can't a multi-million-dollar company like Hasbro produce something as realistic and as good as what you've produced there? I mean, I've just got one more for you. So this is I mean, look at that, for crying out loud. Who wouldn't want that as a kid? I mean, who wouldn't want that now? That is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's just made from foam board. I've actually got that one over there behind me. Let me grab it quick.
Okay, let's just come out. Let's see this in real time.
There it is.
I mean, quite, it's a big old bit, isn't it? It's a big old set.
Look, it's really big.
Yeah, look at that.
But it's just all foam and all foam board.
But again, it looks so realistic.
Individual, just bits of foam. But when you set it up, like you said, and you put the figures in it, I'd like to think it looks realistic. The doorways.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely incredible.
It's just all made from foam and painted. The underneath, look at the state of that.
Yeah, but you don't see that though, Daniel.
You don't see that bit. You only see that bit.
Yeah. That is just absolutely incredible. Really, really is.
So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make stuff for George that was realistic, and hopefully I've managed to achieve that. But you
absolutely 100%.
Why can't they give us like buildings like this? Because that cost virtually nothing for me to make.
Yeah,
it's just a polystyrene ball, a bit of foam board, and some plaster bandages and paint. That's all it is. I mean, it cost me less than probably £6 to make that. And they could flog one of those for what? What would you sell that for? 15 quid, 20 quid?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a license to print money. They're mad.
I mean, the thing is, do you think from their point of view that they want to build something that's quite sturdy and not going to get broken? Do you know what I mean?
This is. I built it for George, and I know he lobs it about all over. Look, listen.
Wow.
You're not going to damage that. It's like a plaster cast around somebody's leg.
Wow.
It's solid as a rock.
Wow.
That was my aim as well, to make it durable, because he's going to be lobbing them about all over the place, isn't he?
Well, all I can say is, Hasbro, for the love of God, sign this man up. I mean, he's producing better stuff than. I mean, honestly, I mean, the prices that they're selling stuff for, and you think the issues with the quality, the look of it. I mean, like you say, that Navarro Cantina, absolute. I mean, I've got one, so I can't moan too much. But
I have one as well.
Do you know what I mean? It's like you moan about these things, but you still end up.
I still
buying them, so you can't really grumble at that. But I don't know. I just find it amazing that there's so many talented people out there that can produce the goods exactly how you've done it, and we're still getting shite from Hasbro at times. It's
shame. It is a shame.
Yeah, no, but top man. I mean, yeah, awesome stuff. Moving on within your collection, do you have a sentimental or prized piece?
Yes and no. No, because I didn't keep anything up from childhood. So had I
Yeah.
done that, probably would have been something from that. But I will go back to the 2 figures that I showed you earlier, because these were the first 2 that got me into collecting.
Yeah.
These hold a little bit of sentimental value to me.
Yeah.
With regards to the Hasbro stuff, I've got a couple of dioramas that I made that I hold them quite dear because of the amount of time and effort they took. And I mean, I built a whole cantina.
Yes.
And I've had people asking to buy it from me. And I had a fella in Australia that wanted me to box it up and ship it to him. And he offered me a lot of money for it, way more than what it would be worth.
Wow.
I just couldn't send it to him because it would get smashed to pieces on the way over there. And I'd never forgive myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the issue.
Yeah, I would say those 2 figures are probably my most sentimental pair out of my collection.
Yeah, awesome.
Keep anything from child.
Just going back to your dioramas then, how long does it take you from start to finish to do a diorama, or does it depend on the size of it, what you're building at the time?
Depends on the size, and obviously depends on the materials you're using. But this building, for instance, building something like that, I could probably build that from start to finish in about 2 days, maybe 3 days. And that's only because of the drying time of the plaster and things like that.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it's not that difficult. There isn't that much involved. Yeah. It's just, I mean, the 4 sides of that are just polystyrene. So you just cut them into rectangles. You hot glue them together. You stick your polystyrene ball on the top with your lid. You cover it in plaster bandages, warm, wet water, wrap it around, leave it to dry. You might need to give it another little coat of plaster of Paris because you might get a few holes where you haven't, spread it around properly.
Yeah.
So you could do all that in probably 3 hours, 4 hours, let it dry. Following day, you come back, give it a coat of paint, make the door. It doesn't take as long as you think if you're cracking on with it.
Yeah.
And then obviously the more of those you do, or the bigger the project, it's all about the drying time, really. This one, like I said before, this one's slightly bigger, so the drying time will be a bit longer. There's a few more bandages have to go on it, a bit more plaster. Yeah. So I've got I haven't built one for a while, but I have got quite good and a bit quicker at building them now. So yeah, it doesn't take as long as you think.
Yeah, you got your eyes on doing anything next?
There's loads I want to do, but it's finding time to do it.
Yeah.
There's so many I want to do, but I will get back into it, when life allows me to. But at the moment, a bit tied up, but little bits I make little props and things every now and again when I get bored.
Yeah.
A little moisture evaporator, or a couple of cargo crates or boxes or things.
Yeah.
It just keeps me sane, to be honest.
Well, like I say, you do a fantastic job, and it's a pity Hasbro don't follow your lead, really. But yeah. Do you have a Grail piece in your collection? Now, when I say Grail piece, I used to ask the question as in, like, would you spend a certain amount of money? You wouldn't mind spending a certain amount of money on that or whatnot. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be something you've seen like in the store 3 or 4 months ago. You think, I'll pick it up later. You've gone back to get it and it's gone and you've not seen it since. So is there anything like that you'd want to add to your collection, a Grail piece?
Not really. I wouldn't say there's something I would call a Grail. I mean, to bore you to tears like everybody does, I don't own a barge, and I would like a barge, but it's not something that I would call a Grail. I don't really have a Grail. I'm not. I don't collect everything, as you know. So, no, I don't really. I wouldn't say I have a Grail. Not something that I'm desperate for. If a barge comes along at a decent price and I'm in a position to buy one, I'll buy one. No, there isn't really anything I'd call a Grail. Maybe maybe if somebody wanted to give me a vinyl cake Jawa or something from way back when.
Yeah.
But or a double telescope in Luke Skywalker or something. That I would say no to one of them, but no, I wouldn't say I've got a Grail.
No. What about original 96 Kenner Star Wars figures? Have you got those?
I haven't. No.
No. Would you be opposed to getting those, or is that something that you think, no, I prefer the articulation on the vintage collection and I'd collect those?
I would love them. Let's be honest. We all would. I would love another collection of them, but they're not cheap. I can't afford them. And I do prefer the articulation on the modern figures, to be honest. Dioramas, for instance, you can't exactly sit the Kenner figures down in the cantina when you're setting it up, can you?
No, well, that's the thing. Like I've said to loads of people, I can sit here and look at these figures and just the nostalgia that I get from those figures because, you know, played with them as a kid, albeit these ones aren't mine from childhood. I did what you did and gave mine away. But just to think and look at them and just remember all those memories we had and setting up those bases and stuff like that. And I've said it loads of times before, so I don't have many regrets in life, but my regret within collecting is that I didn't finish the 96 first. I started off collecting them and I got up to as far as a Manaman and Yak Face. And then I stopped collecting the vintage collection figures, original Kenner, and then started getting all the modern stuff. If I'd have carried on collecting those, I think I would have been able to complete the 96 for a really decent price. But now, like you say, the price, especially those last 17 figures, they've gone. Even the standard figures, you know, like your Stormtroopers, Han Solos, you know, the ones that they did do lots of, they're still going for a pretty penny. I mean, I think it was a friend of mine, Adam Berry. He got a Cloud Car Pilot, 85 quid complete. I mean, loose. Loose. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't pay that for mine. I think I must have paid about 20, 25 quid.
I must admit, I've paid 85 quid for loose modern figures, to be honest. So
but again, I don't understand how some of these modern figures now are almost as expensive as the original Kenner figures. I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, it is strange. It is strange. I think the value, though, I think the real valuable ones are the ones that are carded, aren't they? Because the loose ones you do, I mean, they do suffer a little bit of damage. You know, I don't think you'll ever get an absolutely mint loose one. You'll get some good ones.
Are we talking vintage Kenner?
Vintage, 77 to 85 figures. So the ones that are on card, you know that they are minty mint, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I had a minty mint figure, Princess Leia in a Bosch disguise on a Return of the Jedi card, but the card was beaten to. It was. I mean, my mother-in-law, bless her, she picked up and she must have paid what, about £2.50 or something like that. And I've had it for a long time, and it was just beat. And I thought, you know what? I like getting certain things in my collection graded. So I thought, I've not got any of my original Kenner figures graded because I got a lot of them off of eBay, and I don't know whether they are the correct weapons or whether they are the genuine weapons. I don't know if they're repros or not. I mean, I'm not that into it that I, you know every single weapon and stuff. So to save any embarrassment, I thought, well, this one I know is complete. So I sent the carded figure in with a letter to say that, you know, to open it up and mark it as graded. They sent it back with a letter saying, we can't do that. Anything before 1990, they cannot take off the card.
Won't open, no.
They won't open. So for God's sake. So I've opened it up and then sent it back off again. And I've managed to get it graded. But I mean, a lot of people, you know, they wouldn't agree with that. A lot of purists don't agree with that sort of thing. But listen, it's my collection at the end of the day.
Exactly that. It's your collection. You do what you want. Yeah. I do see both sides of the argument.
So do I. Yeah, but
absolutely. But you know, if it's your collection and it's your figure, you do with it as you wish.
I mean, the figure now is displayed really nicely and it looks great in the acrylic case. Whereas if it was on a beta card, it just didn't look that great. And I know people are saying, well, you know, you've just managed to take a figure off a card and there's not that many carded figures. But that's fine. You know what? Like I say, it's my collection. Do you know what I mean? It's I'm
not a fan of carded figures when the card is battered, to be honest.
No.
I really don't see the point. No. You know, when we collect our modern figures, we want the best card that we can get our hands on.
Yeah.
And even if I was to collect the vintage stuff on card, I wouldn't want cards that are all creased and battered and smashed. I want the best card that you could possibly
but I mean, get. Even those figures are going for quite a bit of money. I mean, there was, what was it? I think it must have been Echo at the big, when was it? I think it was an Echo we went to a couple of years back. And there was a Luke on a Bespin card, and the bubble was slightly torn away from it. But I think they're wanting an extortion amount of the money for it. It's like partially sealed. Well, for that price, I want it fully sealed, not partially sealed. You know what I mean?
I'd be the same.
Yeah.
I'd be exactly the same.
Yeah. If you could collect any other toy line, what would it be and why? So you've got the room to get all your Star Wars, and you think, you know what? I'm going to dibble dabble in another toy line. What would it be? What would it be, and why?
That's a great question. Probably Action Man, but some of the older stuff, you know.
The 12-inch Action Man, or the 3 3/4?
Yeah, the 12-inch Action Man, because of the nostalgia for me. You know, playing with them as a child, they were. I mean, they were probably. Oh, then again, would I want Masters of the Universe?
Ooh.
As you know, I mean, I said that they're the three: Star Wars, Action Man, Masters of the Universe were the three main ones for me.
Yeah.
No, probably Action Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be able to dress him up again in different outfits and set up, you know, the bases and the tower and yeah, probably Action Man.
Would it be a question of collect them all and be a completist, or just get the ones that you had as a kid or the ones that you like now?
Now, probably the ones I had as a kid.
Yeah.
I'm not really a completionist. I should be the way I am. I mean, I should want everything, but it comes down to the amount it's going to cost.
Yeah.
Where you're going to put it. I mean, like going back to the vintage collection, I would be lovely to have all of the carded figures, but you can't display it all. I don't just want it.
Well, no, that's the issue.
I mean, I've got so many loose figures. I've got tubs upon tubs of bagged up loose figures that, you know, hardly ever see the light of day now. I mean, I'll set them up every now and again in dioramas or on some display shelves, but yeah, it's tragic. You're buying this stuff because you want to see it and you love it, and you're locking it away, aren't you? So
with your collection, then, do you keep it generally the same all the time, or do you rotate stuff?
I rotate it.
You rotate it, yeah.
There's certain areas I keep the same, but I do rotate the loose figures in certain cabinets. Depends what mood I'm in, really. Something comes, you know, Mandalorian, when the series comes out, I'll get the Mandalorian figures out again, and I'll set them up in the cabinet. And then a few months later, I'll change it round. I'll put the OT figures in there, set up certain dioramas. Most of my smaller dioramas, I make sure I make them so they fit in the cabinets. So, you know, I'm governed by that sometimes.
Yeah.
But I rotate it. The carded figures I've got a little area where I've got the carded figures around in an alcove.
Yeah.
But I used to have them hanging on nails in the wall or Velcro in the wall. But that was a pain in the ass to change them around, pardon my French. So I actually put shelves up now that I keep my carded figures in the DC deflector cases.
Yeah.
Not star cases, because I can just put them on the shelves and move them around.
Yeah.
So I do rotate them.
Awesome. Right, question 8. This is a 2-part question, so this is like a 2-in-1 here. Is there one figure or ship you wish Hasbro would release?
Yes.
Okay.
Sandcrawler.
Sandcrawler, yeah?
Yeah. A HasLab Sandcrawler. A big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How confident are you, or how likely is that to happen?
It's possible, I would say. How likely it is, I don't know. The problem we have as old school collectors wanting, I mean, I presume you prefer the original trilogy stuff to anything else.
Yes.
Most of our generation do.
Yeah.
Obviously. Because of the new shows and films and characters and cartoons and things that are coming out, the likelihood of getting lots of original trilogy stuff is getting less and less, isn't it? Let's be honest. But we can dream for a HasLab Sandcrawler, I think.
But surely you would think Hasbro would know the love, the passion that a certain generation of people have towards the original trilogies. They surely know that the original trilogy Star Wars stuff will sell, regardless. Absolutely. It will sell. Yeah. So why is it that they're so stubborn or adamant not to, you know, give us these original trilogy vehicles in a HasLab? I mean, fair enough, they did the barge. Look how well that done, and that was only, you know, released in America. Imagine if that had been released worldwide, how many they would have sold worldwide, the amount of money they would have made. So if they know that the original trilogy sells, why are they not then thinking, ka-ching, ka-ching, we can cash in on this?
I've no idea, Stu, to be honest. It beggars belief, doesn't it? I mean, it makes you wonder who's running the company, to be honest. They would make fortunes.
Funny you should say that. It's just,
maybe a lot of the they're focused on the modern stuff now, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, so the younger generation, who will be the collectors in the future, hopefully, they're not as fixated on the original trilogy as what we are they? I mean, you see it.
You would think Hasbro would cash in on that while they still can.
Yes, you would. I agree, but who knows?
And funny you should say you don't know who's in charge. So the second part of the question is, if you were in charge of Hasbro Star Wars toy division, what would you do differently to how it's being run now?
More product, obviously, if possible. I mean, we know there's financial implications and everything, but more product. I'd release more, and I would spread it out a bit better. I mean, obviously, I would give old stuff and new stuff, original trilogy, new stuff, because there's collectors who collect everything. You've got your modern generation that'll be more into the modern stuff. We're more into the older stuff. Obviously, you have to balance it out, but and I'd get rid of. A lot of people are not going to like me for saying it, but I'd get rid of the 6-inch line as well, because that stops a lot of 3.75-inch stuff getting made. Just stick to one scale,
Yeah.
And I know you've got. I mean, I actually have 6-inch figures myself. I've got what I call the original 12 characters in 6-inch form.
Yeah.
But 3.75 is the scale, isn't it? Just stick with that, I would say, and stop making those stupid retro collections as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think as a one-off with the original trilogy figures, I think that was a nice touch. That could have worked. But to do retro again, there's going to be people out there saying, "Well, there's room for both." And yes, you're absolutely right. There is, but I think from going back to our generation, and I know Star Wars is for everybody. I get that, but it really should have just been a niche thing as a 12 figures from the Star Wars, 12 figures from Empire Strikes Back, and 12 figures from Return of the Jedi. That's it.
I agree.
In my opinion, I mean, listen, I can respect that people are going to be thinking differently, and they go, well, like you say, there's plenty of room, and there is, but this is just our thoughts and opinions. So, we're not saying it to offend people. It's just what we would want and how we'd see things.
Yeah, you're right. It's all about what everybody wants, something different, don't they? So
yeah,
we live in a time, let's be honest, we live in a time where we try to please everybody, and by doing it, we end up pleasing nobody.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't want to be in a I mean, as much as I'd love to work for Hasbro in the Star Wars department, I wouldn't want to be the face of Hasbro when they do these live streams. No. Really, do you know what I mean? I do feel for them, because they don't have to take a battering,
don't they? Some stick, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, they're just doing their job at the end of the day. So, but yeah, sort it out, Hasbro, for Christ's sake.
Pull your finger out, for God's sake.
Yeah. Give us what we want.
Okay. They do listen to the community. We've had things over the last year or so that been heavily mentioned in streams and in the community and all that. So they do listen. They're just not listening completely, are they? I mean, the next HasLab, I'm hoping, is an original trilogy HasLab.
Yeah.
And it will. I'm hoping it. I want a Sandcrawler, obviously. I wouldn't say no to an Imperial shuttle.
Yeah.
Ewok Village, I think, is a bit of a silly idea for a HasLab, to be honest with you. It's not a HasLab, it's a play set, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, I guess. Yeah.
The HasLab should be the dream ships and vehicles that were too big to make, way back when and even now. So, I don't know.
I mean, with those kind of decisions, do you think that's all on Hasbro, or do you think they've got their hands tied by Lucasfilm and Disney?
I think it's a bit of both. I think they definitely have their hands tied a little bit by Lucasfilm, because of obviously the popularity of things and all, and but you're either running your company the way you want to run it or you're not. You know, if you want to make these things, because like you said earlier, they will make money by making this stuff. They're mad not to, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know, to be honest. I don't even think they know.
Yeah. Well, it's every possibility they don't know. But like I say, I kind of do feel for them in one respect, but then on the other hand, I think, I mean, you know, they've got to act all excited and go, oh, look at this is cool, when they're thinking we're going to get absolutely pummeled for this live stream. But hey diddly ho diddly. Right, we're coming to the top of the hour. I've got 2 more questions for you. What gives you that toy collecting buzz?
What gives me the buzz? Just the nostalgia, I suppose. The memories from childhood of the Star Wars figures. I must admit, I do like seeing new figures brought out, the characters that I haven't brought out, because I know what dioramas I can build for them or put them in.
Yeah.
It's just, I would say, nostalgia really gives me the buzz, and wanting to carry on collecting the original trilogy characters. I would like them to make some more original trilogy characters that they've not made yet. More Cantina patrons. There's a few more from Jabba's Palace that they could do. Some more officers. Just, you know, background characters. Things, you know. I love a background character. I think they're great. A lot of people say, oh, they're going to peg wall. Nobody wants it. But how many Luke Skywalkers, Han Solos, Darth Vaders do you want? I want a bit of everything, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's another thing as well, going back on that, and it's going back to the retro collection. Again, that could have been a prime time to do figures that Hasbro never released within the original Kenner, or Kenner rather.
They did that with the Tarkin.
Mon Mothma.
They did it with Mon Mothma. There's another one, is there not, that they did it with?
Luke Snowspeeder.
Snowspeeder Luke, that was it.
Yeah.
Give us some of the
involve those kind of figures as well, then fair enough.
Yeah, Stormtrooper Han. We never had one of those. We would have loved one of them when we was a kid. Yeah, definitely. That's what the retro collection should have been about. I think it should have stuck with original trilogy stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, the ones that we hadn't had. Like Stan Solo does. He does ones.
Yeah, he does a good job. I think he does a fantastic job.
Brilliant. They look fantastic, those figures.
Yeah. I mean, would you get those figures? Would you get Stan Solo figures?
No, I would if I collected, or if I had original Kenner figures from when. But obviously not now, because I'm not collecting the older stuff.
Fair dues.
The modern stuff, simply because of the articulation and the detail. That's what draws me to them.
Last question: what does your collection mean to you?
Oh, it's a good question. Just means a hell of a lot. I mean, it like I said, it makes me happy, puts a smile on my face, brings back wonderful memories of childhood. Even though this is all modern and it's not the old stuff, it makes me think of you know, what a wonderful childhoods we had in the 70s and the 80s. And it's just I don't know, it just makes me feel good. It makes me, you know, it gives me something to focus on, to look forward to building a new diorama, or you know, it just it's difficult to answer that question really, but you just get a nice warm feeling, don't you, when I look at my collection and I move things around, or I chat to some of the fellas in the community. Just, I don't know, it's just something we all love, we're all interested in. It just makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I'm totally on board with that. So you were saying that when you first started collecting, I
lost you there for
rolling in a regular pace there. What was your wife thinking then? What, you know, was she cool with it, or?
Forgive me, Stuart, I just lost you a little bit there halfway through that question.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, you said when you first started collecting, you know, you said that you wanted to get these, and your wife was like, "Oh, why did you get those? Why are you getting those? You're a grown man." So when the figures started coming in on a more regular basis, what she said about that? Is she all good?
She hasn't said a lot, mate. I locked her in the cupboard about 6 years ago for a while. No, she goes along with it now. Obviously, at the beginning, it was, I mean, grown man, what do you want to collect those for? You're not baby anymore. But I think she appreciates the nostalgia that we all get, and obviously the childhood. I mean, I've known my wife since we were about 8 or 9 years old. So
oh wow,
it's a long time.
Yeah. Gosh. That's incredible.
Well, she knows me quite well. I would have thought by now.
Well, after I'd say, bloody hell, yeah,
13 years.
Yeah. Daniel, I've got to say, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you, mate. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I think you are such a talent when it comes to doing your dioramas and your customs, and long may that continue, mate. Yeah, absolute quality. Where can people find you on social media platforms?
I have an Instagram. I must admit I don't use it that often, but I am there. And obviously I have my YouTube channel that I did plan on having a lot more videos, some tutorials and things like that. That was my original plan. But like I said earlier on, life, family and things have made it so that's a bit difficult to find the time to do all that stuff. But hopefully I will get around to doing it. So YouTube and Instagram, that's pretty much it. I've got my own Facebook profile, but not a page as such.
Yeah.
That's where you'll find me in the chat of most live streams in the community. Yourselves and everyone else. I'm always here and about somewhere.
Awesome. Well, what I'll do is I'll put the links to your social media platforms in the description below. Are you wanting me to put your Facebook one in there?
Just the Instagram and the YouTube for now.
That's fine, not a problem. I can do that. No worries. I'll do that.
Wants to have a look at the videos, then they're more than welcome.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Once again, Daniel, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It has, mate. Thanks for having me.
It's been fun, mate. And again, as always, the hour absolutely flies by.
It does.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I just want to just say thank you so much to everybody who's stuck with us to the end. Really appreciate your support. Appreciate you watching. Stay safe, take care, and we shall see you in the next video. And bye for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Stu.